The other thing I'll say about it is that, the most insidious form of taxation is inflation. They print more money, which is the theft of wealth from those that get the money last or latest, we may say. Yet it tricks people into thinking they're getting richer, which actually, the more assets you own, it is like it's a regressive tax on the poor. So the more I'm depending on the dollar to store value, the larger percentage that a dollar makes up of my portfolio. Like if I'm living paycheck to paycheck, I'm 100% dollars, right? I'm all dollars. I've got a checking account. I'm trying to keep it filled up and not let it get below zero when I pay my bills. So my portfolio is 100% dollars. I'm getting taxed the most by inflation. Versus I'm a super rich guy. I've got 99% assets, real estate, equity, whatever. I've got 1% cash. Well, the more money they print, those assets are getting bid up by more dollars. And I'm only exposed to inflation in that 1% allocation to cash. So inflation is it's pure evil, in my opinion. You're stealing from the poor and giving to the rich. It's awful. So Bitcoin immunizes you from inflation. If you hold Bitcoin, no one's inflating Bitcoin. That's the core to the value prop of Bitcoin. It's 21 million fixed forever. There's deeper things I could say about taxation. I think it's theft, flat out. I'm very, very libertarian about this. But I also don't consider it to be even an argument. How did I hear this put? Let's just put it this way. Consent is the difference between sex and rape. Consent is the difference between having a job and being enslaved. Consent is also the difference between taxation and a voluntary economic transaction. None of us consent to be taxed. None of us. It's not something we negotiate. You cannot secede from the state. You can't say, hey, I don't like the services I'm being rendered. I'm going to exit. People will argue and say, yeah, you can leave the US and renounce your citizenship. Yeah. And if you make more than the number is tiny, $100,000 a year, maybe, you're getting assessed an exit tax. So if you don't like the quality of services you're receiving and you don't like being robbed, then you can just pay this bill. You can get robbed one more time and leave. It's really bad. So I won't go into that rabbit hole, but I'm pretty outspoken against inflation and taxation and statism more generally.
I like to push back a little bit, but I hope that answers your question, Mama. It gets taxed like any property. Basically, if you're holding Bitcoin, as Robert's suggesting, for a long time, then if you put in 100,000 over 5 years, and then at year 6 you want to take out, maybe it's worth 200,000, let's say, and you want to take out 50, you would get taxed on that $50,000 withdrawal. And a CPA, obviously, not tax advice, can help you figure that out. But I want to push back, Robert, a bit on tax, just for my own education and knowledge. And I'm going to take a counterpoint here. It's not necessarily what I believe, but it's what someone might say. If I'm a government official and I say, look, you may not want to pay tax, but we have to tax you to put that money towards schools and roads and defense systems. One could argue the military budget's inflated, or maybe we need more. But either way, there's a certain amount of money that every citizen has kind of a duty. The old American way of thinking about tax was it's what can help make our country great if we all pay our fair share. But that share was lower back in the day. To make how else do we pay the interstates, right? Things like this.
Anyone that says the old American way of taxation was like a duty to pay for our communized services that we render doesn't understand American history. America became a superpower because we had basically no taxes. We were set up as a decentralized republic with very low taxes to no taxes. Taxes were introduced in wartime to pay for both the Civil War and later on World War I and World War II. So I would very heavily push back against that empirical assessment of the American history related to tax. There's a great book on this by a guest I had on the show named Dominic Frisby. It's a great book. I mean, he argues that the history of the world is a history of tax. Basically, different groups that emerged victorious, figuring out how to extract tribute from the vanquished. This is human history, like rulers and ruled. People constantly trying to scalp off the hard work of others. That's what taxation is. And there's another great book on this called The Myth of National Defense, which is a free PDF on Mises.org. And it goes through all of these, I'm going to use the word bullshit narratives about the genesis of the state and how taxations, we all decided that it would be good for all of us. So we decided to pitch in and raise a military. Like, it's all a lie. It's been whoever's in a position of power, how can they exert leverage and use that monopoly of violence to extract economic value from individuals. And what would I say to that person? Okay, we need you. You're claiming, the claim is that we need to build roads, raise an army, create other communized goods and services, right? Okay, then let it be voluntary. People will voluntarily spend for what they want. That's what a market is. I don't need anyone to coerce me into funding your military if I don't want it. If I want it, I'll spend money for it. If I don't want it, then I won't spend money for it. So I actually think this is, I just wrote a long piece about this. It's titled Sovereignism, Part 8, Everywhere and Nowhere. I think this taxation specifically is the fundamental psychological schism on the psyche of humanity. Like the idea, because it's an idea that I somehow, as a ruler, have more of a claim on your life and the fruits of your labor than you do. So it's fundamentally a broken argument. Why? Like you own yourself, right? Only you can move your left arm. Only you can choose to do anything in any one moment. No matter what I say to you, no matter how many threats and how much torture I give you, I can never control you. I can maybe get you to submit to my will. So the idea of taxation is countervailing that truth. You go and you work and value in the world, and I'm just going to come and say, all right, give me 20% of it or else. So I'm stealing the fruit of your labor. How can that ever be good? How can that coercion embedded in society lead to anything sustainable?